Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 43 of Diehlman at Halftime, the NBA podcast that tops all others. I'm your host, Larry Diehlman. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome aboard, and if you've been a loyal listener, welcome back. We have much to get to today and not a lot of time to do it. We have 5 sections that we'll get into: a general overview of the NBA this week, and our usual highlight, lowlight, random stat, and game of the week. Let's get to our content for the week. The race for the second annual NBA Cup is heating up. We're down to the final 8 teams in the tournament. From the East, it'll be the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Orlando Magic and the New York Knicks versus the Atlanta Hawks in the quarterfinals. For the West, it'll be the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Dallas Mavericks and the Houston Rockets versus the Golden State Warriors. The quarterfinals will be this week on Tuesday, December 10th and Wednesday the 11th. The semifinals will be on Saturday the 14th. A champion will be crowned next Tuesday, December 17th. My way too early prediction for the NBA Cup Finals is Rockets over Knicks 112-110. Former All-Star Paul Millsap has officially retired. Millsap, a late second-round pick in 2006, spent most of his career with the Utah Jazz before going to the Hawks, Nuggets, Nets, and Sixers. For the 4 years Millsap was in Atlanta, he was an All-Star each season. His other accolades include All-Rookie Second Team and All-Defensive Second Team. Millsap is one of 8 players to record 500 triples, 1,000 blocks, and 1,000 steals. With Millsap's help, the Hawks won a franchise record 60 games and made the Eastern Conference Finals in 2015. Lastly, Milwaukee Bucks forward Chris Middleton, coming off of double ankle surgery in the offseason, made his return on Friday against Boston. The 33-year-old has been medically cleared for about a month, but he needed more time to be physically ready to play. Middleton is coming back at a time where the Bucks were 11-10 through 21 games. Milwaukee started the year in a free fall before bouncing back in recent games. This episode is entitled Go Big or Go Home. So, who's raising eyebrows at the moment? Let's get to our highlight, the New York Knicks. For years, the New York Knicks have either been a joke or they have simply underperformed. This season, this could be one of their chances to make some serious noise. The Knicks are 14-9 and 4th in the Eastern Conference. As we discussed a moment ago, New York also made the in-season tournament quarterfinals. Jalen Brunson is the star at Madison Square Garden, averaging 25.4 points, about 3 rebounds, and 7.7 assists per game. By acquiring Mikal Bridges from Brooklyn and Karl Anthony Towns from Minnesota, the front office is showing the league they're not messing around. Bridges is giving the Knicks about 17 points per night and great defense. Towns is putting up 25.2 points as well as career highs with 13.2 rebounds and 45% from three-point range. You can't forget about guys like OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, and Miles Deuce McBride. Sacrificing Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo to Minnesota stung. But outside of the Celtics, the Knicks might be one of the teams to represent the East in the finals in June. With most of the other New York teams being a mess, you know who you are. At least the Knicks have potential. Their next game is tonight, Monday, December 9th at 7:30. They will be in Toronto to face the Raptors. To get more insight into our highlight this week, we have our second guest of Season 2 on Diehlman at Halftime. Let's get into it. So for our second guest of Season 2 of Diehlman at Halftime, we welcome Lloyd Wilson. Lloyd is a freelance broadcaster for Big State Sports, a sideline reporter and broadcaster for the University of Pennsylvania, and a producer and broadcaster for Princeton University. He spent 2 years at County College of Morris before transferring to Rowan University for his final 2 years, and he graduated with a bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism in 2022. Lloyd, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Larry. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Lloyd and I go back to our college days, so it's always good to catch up once again. So, Lloyd, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Knicks as they look to reap the benefits of their impressive offseason. So, my first question for you, and I know you're totally not biased or anything, what were
Uh,
your initial thoughts of the Knicks acquiring both Mikal Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns over the summer? And even with that, did you think they were going to make any major moves at all?
so I'll actually tell you the exact night that went down when they acquired Mikal Bridges. I had no idea. I think it was the deal got done, what, almost 11:30 at night, almost 12 o'clock at night. So this was
Yeah.
a deal that was done really late at night. Like you were going to wake up to it, obviously, if you were up. But I'm hanging out with my friend. We're actually getting some ice cream. Next thing you know, we're just hanging out, we're chilling, we're talking. Next thing you know, I get a phone call. My guy said, "Yo, we just traded for McCall." I said, "You're lying. There's no way. There's no shot." Because obviously this is something that's been, percolating in the, if you are a Knicks fan or if you're a Brooklyn fan, that's just something that's been talked about over the last few months leading up to that moment. And no one ever thought that Brooklyn and New York would make a trade. Again, the stat that they had was crazy. The last time they made a trade was in the 19, well, it was in the six, I think it was the 90s. The last time they made a trade together. It's been almost 3 decades since these two teams have talked to each other, and they're right across pretty much the bridge. And for it to be a move like that at this particular time, obviously when the Knicks hype is at its highest it's ever been since what, the 2012 season ish, or maybe around maybe 2014, when the last time the Knicks went to the playoffs against the Indiana Pacers, coincidentally. And Carmelo, Amari Stoudemire. If you're a real Knicks fan, you know these names. And you're going to get a caliber player like Mikal Bridges, who some would say is one of the best defending and scoring wings in the NBA, alongside OG Anunoby, who you just recently re-signed in the summer. And to have him on the team and to get that call from my friend and say, like, "Yo, we just got McCall," I just started jumping for joy. I just, at that moment, I was like, "We're going all the way." And obviously, there's other things, the nuances to the move that you have to find out. Who do we give up? What did we give up? We gave up a lot. Obviously, we talked about it today. As we obviously know what the trade was for. And when I got the news, I was just completely excited for the move. And then we knew we had to address the center position also, because Julius Randle coming off of his shoulder surgery. And you just didn't know how Julius Randle would fit now, well, at that moment, with that team. How would he gel? And obviously with the discrepancies in his game, it being obviously he's not the best long distance shooter. He's not the best finisher, if you will. Obviously, him being left-handed, it's hard for him to go to the right. And you had to make a move. And obviously, with him being at that five position, because Mitchell Robinson is coming off of ankle surgery, he wasn't going to be ready and still isn't ready to start off this next season. You had to address the center position. And obviously, it's a copycat league. The same way we talk about with football, it's the same thing with basketball. Right now, the trend is Boston. How did Boston win the championship? Was through everyone pretty much playing five out. Your 1 through 5 can all shoot. And that spreads the floor immensely. It can make the game of basketball a lot easier to whoever the ball dominant person is. Them having to get rid of Julius and Dante to get a guy like Karl Anthony Towns, who was playing sensational to start off the beginning of the season, it was a great move by the Knicks front office. And again, when we got him, a lot of the shock, if you really want to believe it, obviously we're seeing the benefits now. The shock of it was, did we really get better? And that sounds crazy because you're talking about a guy who was an all-star and who was historically, or right now, is probably one of the best shooting big men in NBA history. you're like, whoa, we're not excited. Why are Knicks fans not excited? It's because obviously the talk and the rumors with how Karl Anthony Towns, his game was mental, and obviously some of the background history and stories with how things worked out with him and Thibodeau rather back in Minnesota. How Jimmy Butler, you could say, kind of tainted his reputation as someone who wants to play hard and do all these things that will take the win, and him being called soft. Like, so there's a lot of other things that you thought when that trade was made. Like, is Karl going to be the big time dominant big man since we've had since Patrick Ewing, the Knicks have had, and you could say he's been pretty much that to start off this season, averaging nearly a double double. When that first reaction came when Karl Anthony Towns was traded, it was really like a whoa, it was a pause. It wasn't just a jubilation of joy like it was with Mikal, because Mikal, got the Villanova boys back together, getting the band back together. Obviously, Dante couldn't join it, but it still was that camaraderie over everything kind of move that they wanted to make to ensure that Jalen Brunson is happy now and also long term. So Mikal was more jubilation, but Karl Anthony Towns was more of a pause. Let's wait and see. And right now we're seeing the benefits of what we got from that trade.
Yeah, some good thoughts from you overall. So I was just surprised. Yeah, they got both of them, and like you had mentioned, the Knicks Nets thing in New York trade, obviously not exactly common. And Karl Anthony Towns, and I'm surprised too about the Timberwolves. You're coming off your first Western Conference Finals appearance in about 20 years almost. The Timberwolves, if you look at their history in terms of like playoff runs, their history is very not good. Let's put it that way. That was one of the best seasons they've ever had, and they're like, "Yep, we're going to trade Karl Anthony Towns." So it's definitely interesting. And Mitchell Robinson is more of a defensive player, and he's not a very good shooter. Cat's a good shooter. Is he a good defender? But when you're going against Boston, you kind of have to outshoot them. So my second question for you. So like you kind of mentioned already about Randall and DiVincenzo. So like what has losing these players kind of been like for New York and even Isaiah Hartenstein? So like DiVincenzo was a great shooter for them. I was getting war flashbacks watching Hartenstein kill the Sixers on the glass. I swear Hartenstein and Hart got every offensive rebound possible. So like even Hartenstein going to the Thunder, like what kind of loss is that for the Knicks too?
I mean, you could say the first four letters that come off, obviously, is not how you spell it correctly, but the first four letters of both of those players that you just mentioned, Hartenstein and Hart, is H-A-R-T, the heart. You could say that the heart of the team, the nucleus of the team, in the sense of defensive intensity, was lost. The Knicks right now are not the same defensive-minded team that they were a year ago. And, this is the first time that us as Knicks fans have heard it so far this season. We're hoping that it picks up along as the season goes along and they, start to gel with each other. Everyone starts to know their roles. But losing players like Dante, who came off of his best shooting year in his career, I think he was shooting like over a 38 or 40% clip from 3-point range. Julius Randle probably was in one of his best seasons prior to that shoulder injury, unfortunately. The Knicks were the best team in the month, I believe, of January or February. And I think they weren't like 11-2, something like that. They went on a great run. Unfortunately, Julius got hurt and it started to spiral. Not spiral out of control, rather. We started to elevate. Players started to get more in tune with each other, and they started getting more minutes. Guys like McBride, etc. But losing Dante, you lost a little bit of your depth, if you will, depth in terms of shooting and also depth in terms of guards that can defend from the perimeter, also down low. And then obviously you lost some of your continuity that you had. You had Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, and also Dante that played with each other at Villanova. And then you bring over Mikal. And unfortunately, you had to get rid of Dante to make that cap trade. But for Julius, losing Julius is a weird. Julius started, if you will, this rebuild that we tried to get going years ago. He was pretty much when nobody wanted to come, obviously, if anybody's a basketball fan, they know that the KD and Kyrie thing did not work out. And the Knicks had to pivot. And their pivot was Julius Randle, who was coming off of one of his best years, literally, in New Orleans, averaging nearly a double-double. it's very hard to find a double-double guy in the NBA and replace him with another double-double guy, in this case, Karl Anthony Towns. But for Julius Randle, the reason I say it was weird is because he had his own wits with the fans. He had his moment where, he was at the top of the world. We loved him, and he was sharing the rock. He was kicking it out, shooting great, playing playing defense at a high level, and then just being a bully. He came into the league knowing what he was. Then he started to kind of get away from himself when he got that height and that shine. Not saying that it, blinded him, but some players, and some people can't handle the limelight in New York City, like the big cities such as Philadelphia, LA, Chicago, etc. And I think sometimes the pressure got to him. Obviously, if you're a basketball fan, continuously, you know that Julius Randle had his out with the fan when he put the thumb down. The fans didn't like how he was playing. At one point, it was tenure here in New York. Him putting the thumbs down was like a middle finger to the fans. And at the end of the day, the fans are coming to watch you play. And when we're watching you play like garbage, we're gonna let you know about it. I mean, you being a Sixers or Eagles fan, I'm not saying anything that you don't know. If the Sixers play bad and Maxey or Paul George play bad, you know the fans are gonna say something. So with Julius, it hurt more from the aspect of he's been here. It was more emotional on the side of, man, you started this whole thing, and now we gotta let you go. Dante was like, man, we didn't want to let you go, Dante. We really didn't because we really think you're a really good player, and we wanted you, we loved you, and your shooting was great. But we got to make this move to get to the next level where we want to beat Boston. Hartenstein, man, I want to say that one hurt. He helped the Knicks in a sense of obviously his rebounding, him from the five position able to, dish the other guys cutting. Just his feel for the game was something that was a loss when us Knicks fans saw him go for OKC. But it was one of those things, Larry, where we want to see our guys succeed, but obviously you want him on your team. But if he has the chance to, improve his livelihood and improve his generational wealth, you're gonna let him go. And it sucks that he can't be here along for the ride. But if he's not able to go over there and get his bag and secure his family for generations, it's a great thing. So it really came down for Hartenstein. Do you want to stay here for more long-term money, or do you want to go to OKC for guaranteed money, right now money, and make sure you just cash that out in the check, or cash that out in the bank, and have that security? So he made the move that was best for him and his family. But losing him, the Knicks were the best rebounding team in the NBA with him. And this was before, obviously, Karl Anthony Towns and, Josh Hart being a part of that. But then there was a stretch where Mitchell Robinson was hurt once again. And Hartenstein and Precious Achiuwa and Julius Randle were pretty much the guys down low leading the charge. So it was hard to see him go also, but at the end of the day, as long as, he got his bag and he's able to secure his family, that's all that matters.
Yeah, some good points there. I know those were some tough losses for the Knicks overall. Randall was kind of a mixed bag. DiVincenzo, great shooter. Hartenstein on the glass was just a killer. But Hartenstein in Oklahoma City, in the absence of Chet Holmgren, should do fine. DiVincenzo and Randall on the Timberwolves, and the Timberwolves have kind of been and
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards recently called out the team saying they're soft, so it's something to look into as the season goes on. But the Knicks, you're getting some upgrades. You got to make some sacrifices along the way. So next, most of this core is locked up at least until the end of next season, the 25-26 season. Even with that, is there any weakness that you think could make the Knicks stronger, or should they let this group ride it out?
Well, with this group, the core, you're going to keep the core. I mean, if you're talking about adding depth pieces, there's a whole lot that you can add. You can add, and unfortunately, we lost him to injury before the season started, but you can add more shooting. At one point, they added Landry Shamet, who really made a name for himself when he was with the Clippers. Obviously, they're going to try to add depth to the center position and the power forward position, but more on the depth side. when it comes to the starting five of this team, that is their core. That is their bread and butter. That's the guys that you need to see succeed no matter what. When it comes to the bench and when it comes to depth pieces, the Knicks have been slowly adding some potential great pieces that could be helpful for them long term. Coming out of this year, Kevin McCullough Jr. from Kansas, they drafted him, and then also Pacome Dadier, the rookie from France. Hakaporti, you drafted him, also the center from overseas. Can't think of where he came from at the top, but you're drafting rotational pieces. So I saw what the Knicks were trying to do, but with this core right now being locked up to the next season, this team is only going to get better. Right now, the team is getting better as the games go along, as the months go along. And the team that you're trying to beat is Boston. If you really want to look at timeline, I got to see how long Boston can even keep their core and all that money locked up and loaded up. Because eventually, Jason Tatum, he's going to want his huge bag, as Jaylen Brown just got paid a loadsome about a year ago. So the Knicks are playing it very smartly. I think they're doing the right thing in terms of making sure that the core is here, but just getting depth pieces that can be valuable as the time goes along. They're getting their wings. They're making sure that they have enough wings, even when OG and Mikal maybe can't play a night or two. They got the kind of guys that can come up from the G League if need be and play a few games. They also addressed the center position, as I said, with Hakaporti, who has been getting been getting some minutes, also along with a young center, Jericho Sims, who came out of Tennessee, I believe, a few years ago. The Knicks are doing a good job just trying to keep this core gelling. But when it comes to depth pieces, I think they can add, obviously, another center, another backup power forward, alleviate that stress off of Cat, and also, Precious Achiuwa. And then if you really want to, add another shooter off the bench, but also add another shooter in general because, again, Landry Shamet gets hurt. So if you can find another shooter in the draft via free agency this upcoming summer, depending on how far they go, I think they can boost their odds even more for next year.
Yeah, some good points. Yeah, like it's just with depth with certain teams. I mean, the Knicks core is locked up. You always need depth. We see that in the playoffs time and time again. Johnny is not shooting well tonight. Well, who's the next man up? Who's gonna take his place? For us to win the game. And like you said with the Celtics, trying to catch up to them. So Tatum actually signed his contract over the summer.
Oh,
315,
yes.
315. So Tatum and Brown are locked up. I think Porzingis is locked up. Holiday, Horford, and I think Derek White. So they're
Yeah.
pretty much all locked up. The Celtics aren't going anywhere. I think the Knicks are going to be a strong contender this season. I was hoping the Sixers would be something, but
Hey, it's a
that
long season, Larry. It's a long
that's
season.
it's a soap opera right now. It's more like I'm waiting for what okay, when I see the notification every game saying, "Oh, Embiid's out," they might as well just make it now where is he start with he's not playing and just announce if he is playing. So my final question for you, what was your impression of the depleted Knicks taking the Pacers to 7 games in the playoffs last season? And imagine if they were healthy last year, what a difference that could have made. And what do you think their ceiling is this year if they stay healthy? Because you look at it this way, right? So the Knicks and Pacers went to 7 games. One of them was going to get spanked by Boston either way because it was just the Celtics year. I
Yeah.
think if the Knicks would have won against the Pacers, like they would have gotten swept. I mean, Brunson was hurt. Everybody it was basically the G League team at that point. So what was your impression of that playoff series last year, and what do you think their ceiling is this year?
If that team was healthy last year, Larry, I have no doubt in my mind we would have get the Pacers. That series would have been 1-4-2. It would have never gone 7 games. That is a 4-2 series if the Knicks are fully healthy. Now, when it goes into Boston, you ain't gonna. I'm not. You told nothing but the truth. I think the Knicks would have got one though. We'd have got gentlemen swept, bro. I think we'd have got one at the Garden. I think just from the aspect of what the Knicks could have done in terms of, I guess, with Jalen Brunson, if hypothetically, if they would have won Game 7, however, I mean, somehow, some way. If they even went into Boston with just Jalen Brunson at that somewhat healthy but not healthy Knicks team, they would have gotten swept at full force because Drew Holiday's a beast when it comes to defense, and Porzingis, obviously, I think he was hurt the entire time, if I'm not mistaken. He didn't come back to the finals.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
like he got hurt in the finals and he just came back too,
Yeah.
so
I mean, for that last year, I think the Knicks would have won against the Pacers in a 7-game series. If everything was healthy, I think they would have won 4-2. Now, when you talk about this year, I got to see where this team. I want to say by March because if things happen, injuries happen, unfortunately, and I believe it was January or February where Julius Randle even got hurt. So that's almost like midway and a little bit past half of the season. I want to see where this team is in March. That will be more of my understanding of what this team really is. I think with it being so early, I know it's crazy, like about 20 plus games in, I think they're still trying to figure each other out. I think they're closer than what they were when they first tipped off this season. But right now, I feel like people are still trying to figure out the role. And, they talked about even on the broadcast, they're trying to keep things at an even keel and go high and keep ascending, not go through this roller coaster ride of, you win 2 games and lose 3. Like you just can't have that kind of dip and dive when you're, trying to compete obviously for a championship, but then also gain continuity with each other. Right now, I think the Knicks ceiling, if you're asking me today, I still think this is a team that can get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I just have to see this team gel a lot better defensively. The offense is a problem. They're scoring over 100 points, 90 points with ease. It's the defense and the defensive intensity, the attention to detail that they didn't have, that they had last year, that they don't have really to start off this season. I feel like sometimes I can really bite a team in the butt against a team that can kill you in all corners and all points of the court, like a team like Boston. You have to be locked in at all times if you're going to be able to beat it, if you're going to beat a team like Boston. Right now, we're just looking at the East in its entirety. The 2 best teams, I know everybody's like, winning, losing, but consistently, the 2 best teams are the Knicks and the Celtics. I guess if you want to include Miami, fraud. If you want to include Milwaukee, fraud. If you want to include the Pacers, fraud. These are just teams that are great regular season teams. Now, aside from Miami, I don't know what it is with Jimmy Butler. That man just puts it on when it's in the postseason. But I just look at the 2 best teams coming out of the East will be either New York or Boston. So that's the team that you have to compete with. And even Boston, they haven't lost a step. I think they're like 15-2 or something. They're like, or no, not even 15. They're like 18-2 or something like it. They have been putting it on.
don't forget the Cavs. The Cavs are up there too.
You know why I didn't mention the Cavs? You know why? Because the Knicks have beat them twice. They have beat them twice. So we beat them in the postseason. We beat them in the regular season handfully. So I'm sorry. I can't give credit there, Larry, only because I know that I know that the Cavs are frauds. When it comes to that postseason, they go delulu. I have no idea what it is, but I'm not putting any stock into Cavaliers basketball. Not doing it.
Yeah, some good thoughts there. I know the Knicks are going to be up there in the last few teams standing in the East. I don't know if it's as easy as the NFL where we can just pencil the Chiefs in the Super Bowl every year, like we can pencil the Celtics in the finals for the next few years. We'll just have to see what happens, but I think the Knicks are in a good spot to make a deep run. So Lloyd, thank you for your time, and we'll get you back on the podcast soon. It was good to talk some basketball.
Appreciate you for having me. Thank you so much, Larry.
Let's go to our low light, the Washington Wizards. You might remember last year when Washington Wizards forward Kyle Kuzma said, "Don't be that team," regarding teams avoiding losses to the Pistons, who were in the midst of their 28-game losing streak. He might have been the wrong person on the wrong team to say that. The Wizards are 3-19, the worst team in the NBA, and they just snapped a 16-game losing streak. You heard me correctly. Even when the Pistons beat the Wizards last month, Detroit's final score graphic had Kuzma's quote on there. Ouch. Former Warrior Jordan Poole, who's in his second season in the nation's capital, leads the team with 20.4 points, 5 assists, and 1.6 steals per game. Kuzma is good for about 16 points and 6 rebounds. Washington's off-season highlight was drafting Alex Sarr second overall in the draft. He was our second random stat of the season for his defensive skills, if you remember. The Wizards' core also includes Malcolm Brogdon, Bilal Coulibaly, and rookie Carlton "Bub" Carrington. This team hasn't been good since the good old days of the John Wall and Bradley Beal tandem. Wall is a free agent, Beal is in Phoenix. There is a difference between developing young talent and hardcore losing like Washington is doing. Strap in, Wizards fans, you're in it for the long haul. Their next game is on Friday, December 13th at 7 o'clock. They will travel to Cleveland to take on the Cavaliers. Let's head over to our random stat. I just said in the Lowlight section that the Wizards snapped their 16-game losing streak. Guess to whom? The Denver Nuggets, as in the team that employs Nikola Jokić. The 3-time MVP nearly had a 60-point triple-double in Washington, and Denver still lost. Jokić had 56 points, 22 of 38 shooting, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists, and they lost by 9. Former Wizard Russell Westbrook had 7 points, 10 rebounds, and 12 assists. So, 2 guys nearly had triple-doubles. On the winning Washington end, Jordan Poole had 39 points on a career-high 9 triples, as well as 8 assists. Jonas Valanciunas had 20 points and 12 rebounds. Stat lines like this in a loss point to 2 things. 1. Is anyone else going to step up? 2. Where's the defense? Wendy's had a famous commercial in the 80s about "Where's the beef?" For the Nuggets, where's the defense? On a positive note, it also shows how valuable Jokić is to Denver. There's a reason this man is considered the best player in the NBA by most media members, players, and fans. His scoring ability, in addition to his uncanny passing skills as a center, makes him unstoppable. However, the Nuggets can't afford for Jokić to carry this hard every game. With Denver in the middle of the Western Conference standings, others need to ease the burden. Finally, let's go to Game of the Week. For this week's Game of the Week, let's do the Orlando Magic at Milwaukee Bucks. This game is on Tuesday, December 10th at 7 o'clock, and it'll be one of the 4 in-season tournament quarterfinals matchups. Orlando and Milwaukee have been heading in opposite directions recently. The Bucks, who started 2-8, had a 7-game winning streak snapped last week, and we said earlier they got Chris Middleton back. Meanwhile, despite a hot start for the Magic, both Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are out indefinitely due to the same injury, a torn right oblique. Banchero and Wagner's absences will be tough to deal with. Wagner has averaged about 28 points per game in his last 9. It'll be interesting to see how the Magic's rotation steps up while their stars recover. If this was an Orlando home game, I might have given them the advantage since they're 10-0 in Florida. However, give me the Bucks 120-109. Well, that's all the time we have for today. If you haven't already, make sure to follow me on social media. I have 2 X or Twitter accounts and 2 Instagram accounts. The podcast accounts are under @Diehlman_NBA for both X and Instagram. My personal X account is @LarryDiehlman18, and my personal Instagram is @Mr_Sports18. They're also in the description on Buzzsprout, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And thank you to Lloyd Wilson for being our guest this week on the podcast. Remember, you can follow him on Twitter @LWilson013 and Instagram @LloydWill13. Will is WIL, 1L13. And don't forget to spread the word about Diehlman at halftime. See you next time, fellow Hoops fans.